Hey everybody, this is Stephanie. I'm just fresh back from the Plain Talk about Literacy and Learning Conference in New Orleans, and I want to share some key takeaways. I had the absolute honor of doing a breakout session presentation on, guess what, the importance of screening and using the data to inform your classroom reading instruction, grouping across the grade level if that is what the data indicate your students need, and then providing the double dose for students who are lower performing so that they spend enough time focused on the skills that they are missing. All of this is part of database decision making in the MTSS model for reading improvement. It depends on the needs of your students. So moving away from Tier 1 instruction being all whole group, always for everyone, and really using the screening data, not one student at a time to identify individuals who are at risk, but using it to inform effective classroom reading instruction in Tier 1 that can be used to reduce or eliminate reading difficulties. Yes, I'm a broken record on this topic, and I presented on it again at the conference. For me, the conference was really reinforcing. It was nice to have reinforcement of some of the things that we know from the reading research. So I was listening for those things because I think educators are getting a little bit exhausted trying to chase those shiny objects, looking for what's the next thing. So what I'd like to do is give a summary of some of the sessions I attended and help ground you in what you probably already know and reinforce you for continuing to lean into these things that are so well known that people are still talking about them at the Plain Talk conference. So I'm going to go sort of in order of the sessions as I attended them, starting with Jan Hasbrouk's presentation. The reinforcement here for me was the value and essential importance of oral reading fluency. Jan reinforced the connection and correlation between words correct per minute on oral reading fluency and reading comprehension. So for universal screening, for progress monitoring, you cannot beat ORF. Stick with ORF, okay? Second presentation I want to share about is Lynn Stone's talk on spelling. This really reinforced the connections that need to be made between spelling, phonics, writing, and even the importance of elevating morphology. Not all letter sequences are representations of phonemes, was Lynn's really key message. She used examples, maybe the word was love because we were coming up on Valentine's Day. The E there is not representing a spelling, but another layer of language. And she talked a lot about those language structures, morphology, orthography, phonology, even etymology. Really important reminders. I attended a talk by Devin Kearns and John Bennetts that reinforced the ideas about alignment across the tiers in an MTSS multi-tiered system of supports. John and Devin talked about making sure that you have alignment with your Tier 1 reading instruction and your intervention systems at Tier 2 and Tier 3 in terms of alignment of the scope and sequence across those times of day, alignment of routines, alignment of the language that the instructors are using, and so on. I attended a panel that was really inspirational by a group of educators in New York City that included Elsa Cardenas Hagan. And what this presentation reinforced for me is the essential nature of literacy leadership. We heard from building principal, we heard from district level leaders, we heard from the superintendent of this school district where they were getting unbelievable outcomes for all students who you might think have lots of challenges in learning to read, but not in this setting. They're knocking it out of the park. So that kind of transformation in literacy doesn't happen without courageous leaders. We need to cultivate more of them. I attended the keynote presentation by Marianne Wolf, and what a treat. She's always just such an absolute delight to listen to. She's so passionate about improving reading outcomes for all students. But the key takeaway message, I wrote it down and I want to get it right and read it to you. All students with dyslexia are not the same. Really powerful message. She talked a lot about making sure that we are, again, attending to all of the language structures in the instruction and intervention that we provide to students, particularly students who are struggling readers. She also reinforced the message that has been in several of her books, which is research shows that students read better when they're reading from print than from an electronic device. So lean into that one, everybody. I attended a breakout session by Freddie Hybert, and the takeaway here is that she has a free resource. It is called Text Project. And this message was about not underestimating the amount of time that students need to practice in text. So the Text Project includes many free resources, all nonfiction text, so you can line up this practice to the content area instruction that you might be providing. And the text is designed around the frequency of the patterns. She reinforced the idea of not getting hung up on teaching syllable types, that adds to the cognitive load for students, but in terms of frequency of occurrence of the letter-sound relationships or the phonics patterns, that's what you should lean into and line up the practice materials with where your students are being instructed or where they should be instructed. I also attended a session by Brandy Gatlin Nash that reinforced for me that we all speak a dialect of English, and also reinforced for me that we should not be communicating to speakers of African American English dialect or variation that they are speaking incorrectly or that is a subpar version of English. She used a term that helped solidify for me that it's okay to let students, not just okay, but we should be honoring students' home language, their informal conversational language, but she used the term interviewees as the way she thinks about that more formal use of the English language. If we were in a job interview, how would we be saying it? She used that in terms of her own changes in the variation that she speaks and in terms of writing as well. Okay, so I think that's enough. I want to just mention what was most impactful for me in terms of attending the conference in general, and that was the networking. I think this is what's so valuable about attending a conference in person. And not only my own personal networking, which was fantastic, I really enjoyed everybody I got to connect with, but most especially the members of my Reading Science Academy. I just loved meeting those amazing educators who I interact with inside the membership and in our private Facebook group. And even more than me getting to meet those members, I loved connecting them to each other. So I feel like I was scurrying around the whole time, introducing people to each other. And I loved connecting members to each other, but I really especially loved connecting them to some of their literacy heroes. So it was really fun to be able to say, oh, here's one of the members of my Reading Science Academy, Jan Hasbrouk, or Anita Archer, or Linda Farrell, or Devin Kearns, and get them connected to the people whose work they have been learning about, reading, and following. So that was especially fun and important to me. So hopefully this little rundown of some nuggets from the Plain Talk Conference will be helpful to you, keeping you grounded and centered in those really key findings in the reading research that we should not veer away from when we're distracted by shiny objects.